The most dangerous myth society ever sold you is that you need to be found. We are often told through 1,000 subtle messages that walking alone means you are fundamentally broken, right? We are conditioned to believe that if your social circle isn't constantly loud, vibrant, and sprawling, then your own life must be lacking something essential, something foundational. But stop for a crucial second and truly observe the world. Have you ever deliberately noticed that some of the strongest, the most resilient, and the most fiercely grounded people you'll ever encounter are precisely the ones who meticulously choose to walk alone? They are not fragile. They are the ancient, towering, deeply rooted trees standing alone in the vast, quiet wilderness, thriving, resilient, and utterly undisturbed by the chaotic, fleeting wind that rushes past the noisy crowd. This deliberate solitude isn't happening because they have been abandoned, or because they are antisocial, or fundamentally damaged or broken. It is instead a precise, powerful, internal choice they made, a defining moment of self-governance. Somewhere along the difficult path of life, they discovered a hidden, inconvenient truth, a revelation that most people spend their entire lives desperately running from and avoiding. This truth is the profound, quiet realization that peace is infinitely more valuable than company. They learned that silence, which is often feared by the world as mere emptiness, can actually become your most sacred, most guarded sanctuary. And that solitude, when it is not approached with fear but is consciously and fully embraced, instantly transforms from a perceived burden into an untouchable superpower. You feel it, don't you? There is a rare kind of quiet strength inherent in the simple act of choosing yourself. There is a fierce, rare kind of courage in deciding to stand completely alone, not driven by external fear or societal pressure, but fueled solely by a deep, unwavering, absolute self-respect. The world runs in noisy, frantic, exhausting circles, trying desperately to feel whole, chasing fleeting relationships, endless distractions, unnecessary noise, and temporary, hollow applause. But you, the quiet observer, you realize with chilling certainty that you are already inherently whole. You stop that exhausting hunt outward for completion and deliberately, decisively turn inward for genuine, lasting connection. You look yourself squarely in the mirror, not with longing for validation, but with absolute certainty, and you declare to your soul, you declare to the universe, I complete me. If this truth is finally hitting you right now in this moment of clarity, don't scroll. Share this powerful message and send it into the world. Living alone, mentally, emotionally, and yes, even physically, is not a failure or a punishment imposed upon you. It is, in its purest form, a liberation. It means you are no longer terrified of facing your own unedited thoughts. You stop running relentlessly from the shadows of your past, choosing instead to confront them, to sit with them. And crucially, you stop filling your precious finite life with draining, shallow conversations and empty, meaningless connections just to avoid being alone with the powerful presence of yourself. Because somewhere deep down, you have come to understand something vital, something absolutely undeniable. Solitude doesn't weaken you. It strengthens and fortifies you. Think about that. How many shallow conversations have you endured just to avoid silence? You realize with stark clarity that some relationships actually deplete your vital energy piece by piece, far more profoundly than simply being alone ever could. When you make the powerful, deliberate choice of solitude, you automatically eliminate that constant, soul-draining pull of trying to maintain relationships that simply do not align with your core soul. You reclaim every second of your time. You fiercely protect your sacred mental space. You move through your life without the exhausting need to constantly ask for permission or explain the sheer fire of your vision to someone who just doesn't possess the capacity or the willingness to understand it. You wake up each morning, and for the first time in memory, there is no tension gripping your chest. You don't have to brace yourself for another agonizing day of being misunderstood, overlooked, or cruelly underestimated. Instead, you rise with an unbreakable peace. You move with crystal clean clarity. You live with focused intention. If you are finally ready to choose clarity over chaos, hit the subscribe button right now. And that is precisely, fundamentally, where your unstoppable power truly begins. Because when you live alone, something shifts internally, fundamentally, and you gain the ultimate, unchallengeable authority over how your entire life unfolds. The most dangerous question you can ask yourself in a crowd is, who am I really? Because when you live alone, you step fully into the sacred role of the chief architect of your own destiny. You get to decide, with zero compromise and zero veto power, how your life unfolds. Gone are the petty, exhausting debates about where the dishes must go, or the painful necessity of compromising your deepest, burning passions just to keep some flimsy, manufactured peace. There is no more silencing your unique, true voice just to avoid a tiring, predictable confrontation. You finally get to design your space entirely for you, a sanctuary built precisely around your needs and your vision. You get to build routines that genuinely nourish your relentless growth, routines that never, ever slow you down. If you feel the intense internal pull to start working on your massive goal at 5 a.m, or need to take a powerful, reflective walk under the cold stars at midnight, no complex, tedious explanations are needed. You are utterly, beautifully free to move in alignment with your own divine rhythm. Think about that. How much vital energy have you wasted seeking external approval for the simple structure of your daily schedule? That kind of deep autonomy, that absolute right to govern your own daily existence, does something profound, something powerful to your core identity. It acts like an intense, shaping forge. It relentlessly sharpens your mind. It builds an unwavering discipline. It creates a powerful sense of internal order and foundational strength that nearly everyone misses because they are far too busy shape-shifting, adjusting themselves relentlessly, trying desperately to fit into someone else's predictable, draining chaos. In solitude, the shift is absolute, immediate, and final. You stop reacting and you start creating. You stop managing the delicate, fluctuating moods and expectations of other people, and finally, wonderfully start listening to your own genuine, urgent needs. You learn to respond to the difficult challenges of your life with deliberate wisdom instead of just panicked, regrettable impulse. Ask yourself, when was the last time you heard your real voice, the one that is unfiltered by fear or obligation? You know it's true, right? Perhaps the most beautiful, yet most tragic part of this entire journey is the act of recovering your own authentic voice. In relationships that are fundamentally, sadly misaligned, your voice is like a candle flame slowly being extinguished by the constant drafts of compromise and expectation. Your inherent truth shrinks into something you only whisper to yourself late at night, instead of something you stand on publicly, like a pillar of immovable rock. You compromise, you bend, you break yourself again and again, until one day you look in the mirror and barely, heartbreakingly recognize the person you have become. But when you are alone, truly alone, you stop listening to the distracting, overwhelming noise of the outside world and begin to hear the quiet, powerful wisdom rising from inside you. You reconnect with that powerful inner compass. You sharpen that precious, guiding intuition. You start making crucial decisions not based on the old feelings of fear or guilt, but based purely on unshakable truth. If this profound realization speaks directly to your soul, hit the subscribe button. We are building a community of silent, powerful warriors here. People incorrectly confuse being alone with being fundamentally lost. They couldn't be more wrong. The deep truth is, some of the most found, most spiritually grounded, most emotionally rich people are the ones who deliberately walked the longest, most challenging roads by themselves. Think of the lone, determined hiker navigating a vast, quiet mountain range. They've cried alone. They've healed their deepest wounds alone. They've rebuilt their foundation brick by careful brick alone, and they ultimately rose stronger than they ever were before. They built a life rooted entirely in self-authenticity, a life where their soul doesn't just survive the day, but can finally breathe deeply, freely, unapologetically. Living alone is a profound, necessary course that teaches you how to consistently pour value, pour life into yourself. It hammers home the fundamental lesson that you don't have to be everything for someone else just to be inherently worthy. You don't need to fix, save, or painfully shrink yourself down just to earn love. You are already worthy, just as you are, standing right here, right now. You feel it, don't you? When you finally stop trying to carry the dead emotional weight of other people's expectations and needs, you suddenly realize you have the massive necessary strength to carry your own magnificent purpose. Because real, lasting freedom doesn't come from running away or temporary escape. It comes from absolute ownership, from standing immovable in your truth. Even when that truth is wildly uncomfortable or unpopular. It comes from owning your physical space, your mental thoughts, your precise direction, and your profound peace. When you live alone, you stop waiting desperately for some external person to choose you. You realize, with chilling clarity, that you have already been chosen by you. And that, believe me, is more than enough. There is no loud applause, no standing ovation, no one clapping in the background. And that is perfectly okay. You are not here for the quick, superficial show. You are here for the permanent shift, the radical internal transformation that only happens when you stop chasing hollow approval and start choosing unshakable alignment. When you fully embrace walking alone, you become highly dangerous, utterly untouchable to anything or anyone that tries to distract, diminish, or define you, because you no longer need the external noise to feel alive. You've tapped into something deeper, something ancient, something timeless, something absolutely untouchable. But once you've truly tasted this power, what exactly did you unlock in that profound, echoing silence? When you step into solitude, the world doesn't get quieter. You get louder. When you live alone, something fundamental changes in the very air around you. Silence stops feeling awkward, stops feeling like an embarrassing, empty void. It becomes sacred. It becomes essential. What once may have felt empty or uncomfortable, or something you had to frantically fill with distraction, transforms into a profound, vital substance. Think of it like finally soundproofing a professional recording studio. All the extraneous, irritating frequencies are painstakingly stripped away. You feel it, don't you? In that intense, necessary silence, you begin to hear everything you've been furiously drowning out for years. The relentless noise of other people's conflicting opinions, the shallow distractions that numbed your ambition, the surface-level relationships that were constantly draining your vital energy, even the strained smiles you painfully manufactured just to get through another day. All of it fades, disappears, and what remains is the powerful, solid stillness. Finally, the room is truly, truly still. Your own deep, powerful thoughts are no longer suffocating under the pressure of external expectations. They are breathing expanding, rising to the surface with crystal clarity and undeniable strength. That is the moment it violently hits you. How much irreplaceable energy you spent just trying to be understood, trying to explain the unexplainable to people who never actually wanted to know the real you, trying desperately to be seen by people who only ever looked at what you could offer them. This kind of emotional labor doesn't just tire you, it empties you. Piece by careful piece, you give yourself away until there's nothing left but the brittle shell of the person who once carried dreams, passion, and fire. Ask yourself, what performance am I still maintaining for an audience that doesn't care? But when you are alone, the landscape changes entirely. The constant confusion begins to dissolve like mist on a morning field. The heavy fog starts to lift, and for the first time, true clarity walks in. Not as a fragile whisper or a fleeting thought, but as a presence, steady, commanding, and undeniable. You stop the self-betrayal of guessing who you are. You stop outsourcing your core identity to the moods and whims of the people around you. The exhausting performance is over. No more walking on emotional eggshells. No more absorbing emotional energy that was never, ever yours to carry. It is just you and the raw, unvarnished truth. And there is a devastating beauty, a pure honesty, in that profound solitude that most people, addicted to external noise, will never fully experience. If you are ready to finally strip away the static and find your undeniable truth, hit the like button now. Living alone removes the static. It strips life down to its essential, beautiful core. You realize what the world consistently avoids. Peace is not found in comfort or endless distraction. Peace is not found in convenience or noise. Peace is found only in clarity. And clarity only descends when the external world becomes absolutely quiet. When you are constantly surrounded by the wrong voices, their anxiety and confusion start to dangerously cloud your own powerful mind. You begin to second-guess yourself, hesitating even on things you once knew deep in your gut. But when you are alone, you rapidly recalibrate. You begin to hear that majestic inner voice again. This time, it does not whisper. It commands. It speaks with unwavering authority. It guides you toward your next level, reminding you of your inherent, non-negotiable worth. Without the crushing weight of someone else's expectations, without the emotional noise clouding your every thought, you begin to move with precision, purpose, and raw power. You stop dimming your own magnificent flame just so others can feel comfortable sitting in their shadows. You know it's true, right? People desperately look for clarity and feedback, validation, and romantic attachments, chasing it through social approval and groupthink. But they never find it because clarity doesn't live there. Clarity lives only in solitude. It lives in those quiet 4 a.m. mornings when the sun hasn't risen, and it's just your breath and your deepest thoughts. It lives in the sacred silence of midnight when the world is finally asleep and you finally hear the rhythm of your own soul without interference. Living alone gives you that sacred space, that protected environment where your vision becomes sharp, where truth is not distorted. Once you've seen life with this level of crystalline clarity, it becomes literally impossible to willingly return to chaos. That is why living alone is not a mere retreat. It is a revolution. It is stepping forward into a fierce, defined version of yourself that most people, trapped by comfort and avoidance, will never meet. Clarity demands an extraordinary kind of courage. It demands that you stand absolutely still when the entire world is screaming at you to move fast. When you choose solitude, you choose yourself fiercely. You stop asking for permission to be who you are, stopping the endless negotiations just to keep a fragile connection or peace. You simply live freely, fully, truthfully. If you choose the path of courage, subscribe and join this journey towards self-governance. When it's just you, everything changes. You move when you're ready, you rise when your soul explicitly commands it. You do what needs to be done. Not later, not someday, but now. No agreement is required. No external validation is necessary. You want to dive into your craft at 4:00 a.m. in silence? You do it. This self-governed existence, this kind of personal freedom, unlocks something formidable inside you. You become dangerous in the best possible way. Because once you learn to live without needing validation, no one can ever manipulate you with it. Once you feel that core peace, chaos can no longer seduce you. And once you've stood immovably in your own truth, no one can make you question it again. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into rooms that were never built for the magnitude of your spirit. You begin to live boldly, loudly, unapologetically, not for temporary attention, but from deep, internal alignment, from knowing exactly who you are and why you're here. Let that sink in. Yet, here is the secret people rarely admit. Even the seemingly perfect relationships often come with invisible chains. You start making subtle compromises, skipping a vital morning routine, holding your necessary tongue, downplaying the scale of your ambition. You shift your focus from what fuels your soul to what merely pleases them. You trade your inherent fire for their temporary comfort. You surrender your rhythm for their rigid expectations. That is not love. That is emotional imprisonment disguised as connection. But when you are alone, truly alone, you learn something sacred. You learn how to choose yourself, not just once, but daily. You learn that your routines, your energy, your clarity, your truth, those things are non-negotiable. You learn that peace isn't something you have to earn. It's something you protect fiercely. And you realize that being alone was never about lacking love. It was about building the only kind of love that truly matters, the kind that starts within. But once you've truly tasted this self-sourced power, How do you handle the complicated, messy business of healing all those wounds solitude has revealed? Living alone resets your entire internal universe of standards. It recalibrates your precise sense of what is truly worth your sacred time, your focused energy, and your singular presence. You suddenly realize, with chilling clarity, how peaceful life becomes when it is no longer cluttered with needless drama, half-effort, or draining, one-sided relationships. You realize you don't need chaos to feel connected. You become the full, self-sourced, unwavering wellspring of your own peace. And once you taste that kind of genuine, quiet wholeness, you simply stop settling for crumbs. You stop answering messages from people who only reach out when they desperately need something. You stop chasing those who never made space for you. You stop trying to convince anyone of your worth, because you already proved it to yourself. You showed up when no one else did. You stood in the storm without anyone holding your hand. Now, you don't need their external approval. You don't need their temporary validation. You've already chosen you. You realize the profound, defining difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is just the aching absence of connection, a fear of the void. But solitude, that is freedom, that is clarity, that is power. It is the rare, absolute ability to hear your own voice, unfiltered, undiluted, and undistracted by everyone else's endless competing opinions. You learn to love your own company so deeply, so completely, that anything less than real, consistent effort from others registers instantly as a painful violation of your hard-won peace. What once might have passed as acceptable now feels profoundly out of place, disrespectful, even insulting. Not because you've become rigid or cold, but because you finally learned how to treat yourself right. And once you've experienced that kind of sacred self-respect, it becomes your absolute standard. You no longer crave someone to fill the silence, because you've discovered the immense strength that truly lives inside it. Let that sink in. You've done the immense, quiet work. You filled your own gaps. You built a life that doesn't depend on anyone to complete you. Because of this, you now see the world with sharpened, uncompromising eyes. You recognize when someone's energy doesn't align with yours. You spot inconsistency, not just in what they do, but in what they meticulously don't do. You hear the gaps between their words and their actions, and instead of bending, instead of justifying, instead of hoping they'll magically change, you create intentional distance, not from bitterness, not from anger, but purely from self-respect, because you've grown tired of maybe, tired of kind of, tired of only when it's convenient. You require presence. You require clarity. You require consistency. And you're not ashamed of that. You've earned that expectation because you know exactly what it took to get here. You remember the nights you fought battles no one saw. You remember building your vision alone, brick by careful brick, while the world kept moving and while others turned their backs. You remember carrying your pain quietly, yet showing up anyway. You did the work. You kept going. And now, you're not about to let someone walk into that sacred space you built with laziness, indecision, or half-love. You've become the unwavering gatekeeper of your own peace. The standard to enter your life is not low. It was painfully forged through deep solitude and sacrifice. It was built in the dark when no one was clapping. That's why the bare minimum doesn't move you anymore. Just showing up isn't enough. If they want to stay, they have to match the incredible strength and stability you created when no one was watching. This is the silent, untouchable power of living alone. It sharpens your discernment. You stop choosing people based on fragile potential and start choosing them based on demonstrated purpose. You start surrounding yourself with people who bring peace, not problems. People who speak clarity, not confusion. And if those people never come, you're still good, because you're not waiting for someone to rescue you. You already did that yourself. You already pulled yourself from the fire. You feel it, don't you? When you live from that place of self-sourced power, manipulation loses its grip. Desperation dies. You become untouchable in the best way. Living alone forces you to confront the parts of you that relationships often help you hide. When there's no one else in the room, you can't shift blame. You can't lean on someone else's emotional strength. It's just you, your choices, your thoughts, your regrets, your patterns. And that silence, it becomes the mirror. It becomes the medicine. Healing and solitude is raw. It's uncomfortable. It's not glamorous, but it's fundamentally real. You learn how to soothe your own anxiety. You figure out your triggers, not from theory, but from lived, painful experience. You become your own support system, your own voice of reason, your own place of peace. That's power, because now no one can use your brokenness against you. No one can twist your emotions to control you. You've already gone through the fire and come out whole. There's something sacred about healing alone. You're doing the work quietly, consistently. You're forgiving yourself for the mistakes you made in survival mode. You're slowly uncovering the real version of yourself. Not the version others molded. Not the one shaped by codependency or trauma. But the version that's been patiently waiting to rise beneath all the compromise. You start building routines that fiercely protect your energy. You process your emotions. You journal instead of explode. You create sacred space within your day to check in with your spirit. You become intentional about your healing, not just so you can survive, but so you can thrive. So that when someone eventually walks into your life, they're not walking into confusion. They're walking into a home built on stability, a foundation you created not in chaos, but in undeniable clarity. And because of that, you stop repeating patterns. The toxic relationships that used to attract you now look exactly like red flags. Chaos no longer excites you. It exhausts you. Dysfunction doesn't feel familiar anymore. It feels foreign. And that's how you know you've grown. Think about that. The energy of dysfunction no longer resonates with your soul. Because now, your worth isn't something you hope others see. It's not up for debate. You found it in the quiet. You built it in the stillness. You protected it with wisdom. Living alone didn't just help you recover. It rewired you. It redefined you. It revealed you. Now, peace isn't something you wish for. It's something you defend. You protect it relentlessly because you know what it cost you to find it. Living alone is the highest form of freedom. There are no compromises, no explanations, no emotional negotiations. Every choice is yours. What time you wake up, how you spend your time, what energy you allow in. That kind of freedom. It's rare, it's real, and it's powerful. Because when you live alone, you don't just find peace, you become it. When you're not tied down by the daily demands, emotional negotiations, and compromises that come with a relationship, something powerful begins to happen. You start to reclaim your life in ways you didn't even realize were possible. You open doors that were once closed, not because someone locked them, but because you didn't know you had the key. Want to take a spontaneous trip and wake up in a new city just because your spirit said go? You can. Want to explore a new hobby or dive into a passion project that lights you up without anyone questioning the time, the energy, or the why? Nothing is stopping you. You feel it, don't you? This isn't reckless, detached, do whatever you want freedom. It's something deeper, more sacred. This is the freedom to live authentically, to wake up every day without wearing a mask, to stop shrinking or adjusting or editing yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Living alone removes all of that agonizing pressure. There's no performance anymore. You're not trying to be palatable. You're not negotiating your personality. You're just you, fully, freely, unapologetically. Flaws, quirks, questions, and all. And there's a quiet liberation in that. A relief you didn't know you were holding your breath for. You start showing up for yourself in the rawest, most honest way. And in doing so, you begin to trust yourself deeply, fully, without needing backup. You become the captain of your own ship. You don't just consult your inner voice. You follow it. You rely on your judgment. You build your own compass, your own code. And that kind of trust in yourself isn't taught in classrooms. It's earned in solitude, in silence, in showing up for yourself again and again. Let that sink in. That's when confidence starts to bloom. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, grounded kind that says, I've got me. That's a strength no relationship can give you. It can only be built when it's just you. Learning how to hold your own weight, how to celebrate your wins, how to sit with your failures without falling apart. Because the freedom of living alone comes with a price. It comes with responsibility. It demands that you own your life completely. Your happiness, your heartbreak, your joy, your disappointment. There's no fallback, no emotional safety net to blame or lean on. You are your own support system. And while that pressure can feel heavy at times, it also builds something extraordinary. Resilience. You begin to understand that your life is a direct, undeniable reflection of the choices you make every single day. That realization changes everything. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop hoping someone will come in and fix what you've neglected. Because now you know it's all on you. And instead of fearing that, you rise to it. Ask yourself, am I rising to ownership or shrinking into blame? That's the gift solitude gives you. It reveals your power not through isolation, but through ownership. This isn't about loneliness. It's about power. The power to live on your own terms, to wake up every morning and know, this is my life, and I get to choose how I show up in it. That's a freedom no relationship can replicate. And once you taste it, once you live in it, you could stop settling for anything that requires you to betray yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. When you live alone, you begin a journey most people avoid. A journey inward, a path that forces you to learn the invaluable skill of enjoying your own company. It sounds simple, but in a world addicted to constant communication, to social media scrolling, to likes and notifications, being truly comfortable in your own presence is rare, and it's powerful. Living alone strips away the distractions. It removes the noise. It brings you face to face with your thoughts, your fears, your desires. And in that space, you begin to build the most important relationship of your life, the one with you. You stop needing others to fill the silence. You stop looking for validation in empty conversations. You no longer fear quiet evenings or weekends without plans. Instead, you embrace them. You treasure the stillness because it's in that stillness that you find peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't come from external validation or someone else's presence, but from knowing you're enough as you are right now. That ability to sit alone in a room and feel whole, that's a form of strength the world can't take from you. It means you've reached a level of emotional self-sufficiency that changes everything. You feel it, don't you? Because now you're not just existing, you're thriving. You're listening, not to the outside noise, but to your own voice. The real one. The one that's been buried under opinions and expectations and societal pressure. The one that whispers truth when everything else screams for compromise. And once you reconnect with that voice, it sharpens your intuition. It becomes your guide. You start making decisions that align with your actual values, not the ones you were taught to adopt, but the ones you feel in your bones. You stop living to please. You stop chasing acceptance. You stop molding yourself to fit into roles you never chose, and instead, You begin living in alignment, not for applause, but for peace. That's what living alone gives you. It's not a punishment. It's a rebirth, a reclamation, a return to who you were before the world told you who to be. You no longer live in reaction. You live in creation. You build your world from the inside out. And when the time comes to let someone else in, they're not completing you. They're joining you on your terms, in your rhythm, in your peace. This kind of clarity, the kind that rises from silence, the kind that grows in solitude, becomes the very foundation upon which a new life is built. A life rooted in intention, not reaction, in self-respect, not people-pleasing, in truth, not performance. Clarity is the quiet confidence that allows you to move without confusion, to choose without hesitation, and to live without constantly second-guessing your every step. It reveals what matters, and just as importantly, what never did. In that kind of clarity, you stop chasing peace and start creating it. And what fuels that creation? Your relationship with yourself. Ask yourself, am I treating myself as an afterthought or as a priority? When you begin to truly appreciate your own company, something inside of you changes. You're connecting with yourself, not just casually but deeply, with care, with consistency, with curiosity. You stop treating yourself as an afterthought and start treating yourself as someone worth showing up for. You learn to extend patience to your own process. You begin to give yourself the grace you so freely offered others. You start talking to yourself the way you always wished others had talked to you. Gently, honestly, without shame. You start listening to what you need. You respond to yourself with love instead of criticism. You become your own safe space. You realize you've spent years waiting for someone else to love you, right? To understand you, to choose you fully. And yet here you are, finally learning to give yourself what no one ever did. And that's not selfish. That's liberation. It's a homecoming to the self. And that kind of self-respect, it becomes non-negotiable. You begin to treat your time, your energy, your body, and your dreams with a kind of sacred responsibility. You no longer tolerate what threatens your peace. You no longer make excuses for chaos disguised as connection. You stop chasing validation from people who can't even validate themselves. And here's the truth. When you live alone, you see the world differently. Because now, you're no longer depending on someone else to tell you who you are. You're not shrinking your dreams to keep others comfortable. You're choosing you in full color, in full power, in full truth. Let that sink in. The distractions that often come with companionship, the emotional noise, the constant compromise, the subtle suppression of self, begin to fall away. And what you're left with is space. Space to reflect, space to feel, space to create without apology, space to dream without restraint. You're no longer editing your life for someone else's comfort. You're just doing it. And this solitude, it becomes a creative force, a sanctuary, a blank canvas where you can paint the life you've always imagined, not the one you were pressured to accept. You rediscover your passions, you refine your talents, follow your curiosities. At the end of the day, learning to appreciate your own company isn't just about enduring solitude. It's about evolving in it. It's about realizing you are enough, not when someone validates you, not when you're in love, not when you're approved, but now, as you are fully, completely, unconditionally. That realization is a turning point. It becomes the wellspring from which your confidence flows. Not loud, forced confidence, but a quiet, grounded one. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt. The kind that walks into a room with nothing to prove and everything to offer. You unlock a level of emotional maturity most people never reach. You become emotionally self-sufficient. And that doesn't mean you don't need people. It means you're no longer defined by them. You're not grasping for connection out of fear. You're not giving yourself away just to feel less alone. You've learned that your presence is not just enough. It's valuable. You live slower, more intentionally. You no longer run toward everything that sparkles. You only chase what speaks to your soul. Because now you know the difference between noise and resonance, between presence and performance, between real love and temporary attention. If you've ever felt stuck between the noise of the world and the whispers of your own heart, understand this. Learning to live alone is not loneliness. It's empowerment. It's the highest form of self-honoring. It's choosing to be whole, even when the world teaches you to be half of something. It's about claiming your time and your truth. It's about choosing discipline over distraction. It's about slowing down long enough to remember what you value, and finally having the strength to protect it. And once you taste that kind of freedom, once you realize that your worth is not up for debate, not hanging on someone else's acceptance, you never want to settle again. Living alone is the profound art of self-ownership. It's waking up every morning knowing that this life is yours. The schedule, the silence, the soul work, the setbacks, the breakthroughs, all of it. And while that may feel intimidating at first, it eventually becomes the most empowering thing you've ever known. You don't just exist alone. You live aware, you live free, and you live full. The journey ends not when you find company, but when you realize you were never missing anything at all. Your worth is not up for debate. It is the currency of your peace. If this truth changed your mindset today, share it with one person who needs this power. This isn't just a video. This is the uncompromising declaration of your unstoppable new life.